I'm going to remind you that the work session was eliminated due to a couple of reasons. The first and most prominent reason was there was a lot of people videotaping and chopping and picking and choosing what they wanted to put out to the public for what they could see. By eliminating that, we got one camera. You're going to see and hear everything. There's nothing that's going to take place in that back room where you're going to hear a little piece of it or some of it. You're going to hear all of it. That was the main intent of that. And I want to remind you as well that the majority of council did agree to that. You brought up your website, Max Civic. You can put anything on the web you want to put. That's great. I think it's great that we communicate. I think it's great that we're transparent. But when you started off to hold on to your wallets, folks, MIG's coming for you, that doesn't say that you're working with this council. That doesn't suggest that you're extending the olive branch and you want to make this thing work for everybody. That's saying, you know what, I lost this guy in the election and I'm ticked about it and I'm going to let everybody know.
No, sir, it says nothing like that. It says there has been a sudden presentation of what is called an option that was put on the table with no discussion. And further, as you recall, perhaps, Mayor Kupta is the one who put the camera in the council chamber, and that council meeting has been videoed by the city. And if anybody has a concern that it's being chopped, they can simply post it up on the city website. So the idea that somehow somebody else is chopping it up, I don't even know who you're talking about, but nobody that I know has chopped up the council meeting. So let's just go back to this is the kind of behavior that gives local government a name where we can't have a discussion without having pushing and shoving. So I think it's objectionable, as I said, it's highly objectionable. Some of this is false, some of this is just providing attack material, but frankly, we have much more important things to do. We have a budget coming where there's been a recommendation to increase the budget for our departments $1.5 million from last year to this year. That's where our funding issues are. And I think that these kinds of issues are a distraction, and perhaps that's the reason for this being done by Mr. Molnar. But what I'm concentrating on, and will continue to concentrate on, is the residents of Macedonia, because those people are the people that we are here to serve.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just real quick, your last comment, you're here for the residents. But when I read this, and yes, I did take speed reading in high school, so yes, I did read this just now. You interceded in a lawsuit. That wasn't on behalf of the residents, because that lawsuit was against the city, which the residents fund. It also states in here, and I know for a fact that Mr. Curley asked us to have a different person be his intermediary with the city because you were constantly calling, constantly putting yourself in the middle. And until I saw this, I did not know that you objected to it, and I was wondering why Mr. Engel never got back to me with who was going to be our mediator, because I had said our prosecutor, Myra, would be the perfect person. Totally objectionable. He doesn't look at anything at black or white as far as is it residents or not. So I'm surprised that it's obvious you knew that the city insurance attorney was trying to get you to stop. So I never heard back. But I did get a note from Mr. Engel stating, I never got your reply. And I said, you're replying to Sylvia on my text message. Let me tell you, I did reply. Second of all, in the private world, this is considered public. When someone has, I use this term, and you're probably going to be offended, behavior issues, how they're handling themselves. We give them 3 strikes. We don't fire them right off the bat. We sit there and we do basically what's like a censure. You sit them down, you talk to them about their behavior, it's unacceptable, you're inserting yourself where you shouldn't be, you're costing us money, you're not performing the job the way it was designed. The second time, you get a second warning. You're usually suspended for a few days without pay. The third time, you're gone. I can't tell you how many people have called me asking if we could recall you and use the city charter to remove you from the city council. My belief is, what you presented tonight is the first step that I would be doing in my day job, is to censure or do a formal write-up. You don't find it any concern at all that you inserted yourself into the Plow case. You know what I don't find in here is that you inserted yourself in the Quigley case. That also was city tax dollars. So for my mind, this is, and boy do I agree to disagree, because we've had a lot of disagreements. But if you're going to work together, you've got to take a step back and remember you're one of 5. You're not the only person sitting up here. It's not just the way you decided to be. It's not that, sir, I'm working with the finance director because I'm working with him. Anybody can work with him. He was specifically told he was not allowed to do the budget, period. We specifically, as council, asked you to stop working with him, and you still did so. Don't say it's not true. Let me go back and find the tapes. It's in the minutes you specifically state, I'm doing it because he's still paid by the city. Take this for what it is, of the things that have been done, that people have come to us and said, it's got to stop. I want to work for the residents. You've been working against the residents when I look at these citations. Working with a finance director who was on paid administrative leave and told not to touch the budget. Working on the Plow case. This whole thing, I'm appalled with the whole thing of the building and going into the building. And now they hear that you may be trying to have reprimands against that person. Take this for what it is. Take your oath of office seriously and become a team member of 5, not your lone person. Stop passing the notes. Oh, Rita's not here anymore. You got to work with us, not against us. That's all I ask, and that's why I think this is appropriate.
Any other comments? Okay.
Just let me say, Mrs. Tully, that I've had quite a few people contact me about recalling you also. And
Go for it.
what it is, whether it is or isn't a good idea, I don't think that's an appropriate step. We are elected by the public. I have done nothing that requires a censure. There are disagreements. There are always disagreements. And the team that we're part of is the resident team. We are colleagues here, and this kind of sneak attack is typical of people who are not confident in what they believe.
All right, I'd like to say one last thing. I don't always need to have the last words. I'm going to call the question.
Okay. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Bilkey?
Before I vote, I just want everyone to know I take this action very seriously, and I've thought about my vote. If this motion was about calling Ms. Hanneken for having an opinion that is contrary to my own or anyone else's, I would vote no. I have always and will continue to encourage everyone to have their own opinion. If this motion is about punishing Ms. Hanneken for having different points of view on the city-related resolutions, ordinance, and or motions, I would vote no. I think having opposing viewpoints and political debates are healthy. But I felt this motion is not about quieting or punishing. It's about deterring the behavior of Ms. Hanneken that falls outside her roles as a member of City Council. These actions simply cannot be overlooked and allowed to continue because they are detrimental to the success of its council and the city. Therefore, I vote yes to approve the motion.
Mr. Engel?
I think this is purely divisive. I think it's purely political. I think the fact that Mr. Bilkey is sitting over there reading a typewritten statement tells me that I wasn't part of the in-group and I didn't know this was coming. That's the type of activity, that's the type of behavior that sours council and makes city government not work. We need to be open and forthright with everyone and stop the ambush, stop the Three Amigo attacks. I vote no.
Ms. Hanneken, sorry, Ms. Hanneken, you don't vote. Mr. Molnar?
Yes.
and Ms. Tully.
I guess I'm part of the in-group, because I just read this. That would let I remind Mr. Engel about the special meeting to hire the lawyer, the special meeting for the budget that none of us, the two of us, were not aware of, so we weren't part of the group. I vote yes. It's time to get back to working for the city and stop worrying about ourselves. And if you think someone thinks they're better than they really are, take a look at yourself first, put it behind you, and look outwards at the residents. That's why we're here.
Okay, the motion's carried.